platforms. She runs legal plugs. She runs Legally Plugged, a consultancy firm where she specializes in providing tailored legal solutions exclusive for creators such as music artists, fashion designers, writers, and content creators. Their mission is to protect your creative endeavors and empower their clients with the knowledge and support them to thrive. Onajite has had an impressive track record as a legal and business leader in media, film, and TV. She has helped supervise several short films and theatrical productions such as Balls, Gracie, the one for Sarah, EJ, and the upcoming feature film, The Weekend and Kilometer 17. She started her career in distribution as a content acquisition intern at Premium Box Office TV, now currently works at Ebony Live as a legal executive for the company. So Ms. Ojanajite is one of our mentors that we're expecting in today's class. Our second mentor for today, who is already on the call, yes, Mr. Michael Dujeri. Sorry, sir, if I didn't pronounce your second name properly. Please, you can help me. You can help me with the pronunciation when you are called up. So, Mr. Michael is experienced in driving impactful policy initiatives, fostering industry growth, and facilitating meaningful engagement in the tech and banking industry. With strong research analytical skills, he develops evidence-based policy options and identifies opportunities to enhance approach policy and service with collaborative team environments. He holds a master's degree in law and technology from the University of Ottawa, where his research focused on applying traditional legal analysis to difficult policy questions arising from emerging technologies like AI. He is a go-getter who sees around corners, approaches problems flexibly, and drives what matters. Someone once told him, ask the best what if questions. It's probably because he's always imagining how things could be better. It's part of what keeps him excited about the future and driving change. Thank you so much, Mr. Michael, for joining in. We are happy to have you in class. Last but not least, for our mentors today, I will not be reading all of his profile, but just a bit of it. Right, it's Mr. Adedumade Onibokun. Mr. Adedumade is a lawyer and author whose legal practice focuses on corporate commercial law with a specialized focus on art law. He is the managing partner at Adedumade Onibokun & Co., a general practice firm and leads on matters across different sectors in Nigeria. Adedumade is also the founder of Legal Nigeria, a justice innovation startup that is making access to justice easier for users, as lawyers and non-lawyers, also allowing them access legal information, legal services, and online dispute resolution mechanism to help parties negotiate and resolve disputes. Legal Nigeria also helps lawyers advance their legal career as well. I can see Mr. Adedumade has joined in. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. We are happy to have you on call. I think we've spent quite a lot of time reading profiles, so we'll not be wasting any more time. We'll be getting straight into the session. So like I said with the agenda, what we'll be doing firstly is that we'll be taking mentors presentation. Then we'll be taking mentors presentation, we'll take mentees presentation, and then subsequently we'll follow up with feedback from the mentors after the mentees are done presenting, and then we will take questions and call it a day. So we would like to give the floor firstly to Mr. Michael for, I think, roughly the next 20 to 30 minutes to help us give an introduction into the topic. And after Mr. Michael is done, we'll have Mr. Adedumade. So Mr. Michael, we would like to give you the floor for your introduction and your presentation into the topic for today. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. Are you able to project my slide?
Yes, I will be able to do that, but I'll just need just a very short Just a minute to do that.
Okay.
Okay, it will soon be coming up right now. Just a little delay for my laptop.
I can see that
Okay.
now.
Yes, sir. It's up, sir.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. And thanks to the organizers for putting this together, and of course for your time for attending. So the job of the mentors today is to sort of walk you through not just the law that applies to these areas, but some of the emerging trends and some of the spark your curiosity around some of the issues that are not often covered in your traditional law textbooks. And then also show you or point to you some of the career paths that you could get if you continue with your interest in this area of law. So to the next slide, which talks about what I intend to cover with my section. Then this next slide. So yeah, so what we will do is just sort of try to point to you something that might spark your curiosity around this area of law. I'll show you an example of what could typically happen if you just come across a picture on the street or in the course of your going around town. And then, of course, we'll talk briefly about the law and ownership basics of photography and arts, and how those rights are created. I'll not dwell so much on this. Very much of it is already covered in your traditional law textbooks. Much more important to me for this section is how I can encourage you to begin to ask the difficult questions, to see patterns or trends where others just see plain pictures. And then, of course, we also talk about new frontiers, some of the emerging trends that are coming out of this area of law. It's been with us almost forever, photography and visual arts. But with the impact of new technologies like AI, we are beginning to see certain patterns, certain trends that do not fit into what we might regard as traditional legal theories. And so it's important for us to keep those in mind as well. And then, of course, I will conclude my presentation with some of the ways that we can begin to think if we need to develop or to maintain our interest in this area of law, what are potential career pathways for you. So in the next slide, Dennis, I want you to take a look at this picture, right? So if you imagine a picture that has gone viral online, say maybe on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram or whatever, and it's seen by millions of people, right? And the question immediately is who owns the picture? So is it the person that is in the picture? Is it the photographer that is the person that took the picture, or is the person that decided to share it? Most people will assume that the picture belongs to the person that shared it, right? Because it's their platform, it's their handle, and they chose to project it out there. But for us lawyers, the question is not as simple as it is. So you have to look deeper. So if you start with the question, who really owns the copyright to this picture, the ownership, who has the legal ownership in this picture, and you begin to ask the very tough question. So imagine a famous musician reposes an image on their Instagram without crediting the photographer. And of course, the photograph goes viral, the musician makes a lot of money from it, but the photographer gets nothing from it. In that situation, should the law step in? And if yes, how exactly should the law step in? You know. So these are some of the questions that I would like you to begin to ask, and begin to answer them in your mind. as you embark on this journey and as you continue in it. Because it's very important for you to look at issues, in a more broad, in a deeper way, rather than just the surface. So on the next slide, the next slide, I want us to look at the basis of copyright and ownership, which of course, as I said, I don't want to talk so much about it because you probably are already very familiar with it. But just a few points to mention is, the difference between work that you do yourself or work that you commission, and also differences in how they apply in different jurisdictions. So they are not always the same. And this is very important, especially these days that we appear to share a lot online. So a picture that was taken in the UK, for instance, might have different ownership rights, notwithstanding that it's shared in another jurisdiction, say like maybe Nigeria, for instance. But it's also very good for you to know the basics, start with the basic, and then try to ask deeper questions as you get along. So the next slide then is, while I was preparing for this presentation, and this is something I've been very fascinated with, is the work of a guy known as J.D. Ojekwere. So he was a famous photographer, and this long before we had the internet. So much of his work was captured in what we might call digital physical form, but with the advent of the internet, much of this work started circulating around. And even though he died, and there was administrators for his estate who were very much interested in collecting those arts, collecting those pieces of art, those photographs, and making very good use of them, creating value out of them. So they started to challenge instances where those photographs were being shared online. The point in bringing this up is how valuable arts can be, and how we continue to create them even when we don't yet know the value. And also the importance of, not just taking for granted that something you see or you come across, you have the right to simply repost it. So this is someone that has passed away long ago, but someone whose art has continued to generate a lot of income for the family because they were able to gather it, they were able to repackage it, and they were able to present it out there. So typically, like you look at these pictures and you ask yourself, what's special about them? Anybody can take out their phone and snap somebody's hairstyle. But, they present something that is very compelling, something that is very unique, something that is not readily out there. And much more than that, they appear to capture a particular moment in our history. So if you look at this, the period that he lived, and you ask yourself, so this is what was trending, this is how women typically made their hair. And it's something that is very valuable, something that art collectors see as very priceless and are able to pay a lot for it in order to maintain the copyright to it. So in the next slide, I also want us to look at some of the next slide, and then the next slide, I want us to look at some of the, if you like, curious cases that have come out of legal issues intersecting with photography. So of course, it's usually not, like I've mentioned before, I really want you to come into this mentorship program for this particular topic, trying to think outside the box, right? Not just trying to understand what the basics are. Copyright law is pretty much settled, and not much of it has changed. Of course, we're beginning to see a lot around how technology is impacting that, but the principles are very much the same by and large. So 3 examples that I will use to illustrate with this. The first is one of the strongest copyright cases in the world. It was a case of a Makai monkey in Indonesia. So somebody was just in the conservation area, looking around. A monkey grabbed the person's photograph and took a selfie with it. Of course, the photos went viral, and there was a question of who owns the copyright. Was it the monkey, which is not a human being, or was it the photographer? Or can we say that because it was a monkey that grabbed the photographer and took it itself, that copyright belongs to no one? And it's interesting that this matter went to court, and the US court ruled that animals cannot hold copyright. But there was an animal rights group, the PETA, that decided to sue on behalf of the monkey. And eventually they got a settlement, and the profits, some of the profits that were generated from the copyright of that particular picture went into wildlife conservation. Why is this important? It's important because it stretches the imagination, of copyright. It tells us that things are not always as simple as they seem, right? As you are with a picture, an animal grabs the picture, and the camera rather, and takes a picture. To the average mind, it will seem like this is a no-brainer. It's my picture, it's my camera, and I'm the one that posted it. But it's not always that simple. And again, I also want you to begin to see how laws that were written in 20th century are beginning to manifest in the realities of the 21st century. So the second curious case that I want you to look at very closely is the case of somebody known as Richard Prince. So he was a famous American artist who took other people's Instagram photos, enlarged them, added a few comments, and then sold them as high-end art pieces. And he sold, each of them was going for as high as $90,000. So the original photographers got nothing. It's very common, especially these days, with a lot of online enhancement tools, photo enhancement tools. You take somebody's work, add a bit of, touch it here and there, and then give it a different coloration, and then try to sell it out there. Of course, the original owners of those photographers sued, and of course, they claiming that when Richard Prince was sued, one of his defenses was that it was transformative use. I don't want us to go into the details of that, but what happens where you take an original work and you add value to it and you transform it from what it was, and then you sell it. Of course, that didn't stand up in court because, of course, what he was doing, he was only being creative, only being imaginative. But it's a valid question if you ask me whether or not we are allowed, to build on others' work, or whether or not we are only allowed to build from ground up, to start from nothing. And whether or not the people who sue or the people who claim that they have exclusive rights to some of those pieces of art actually do have the exclusive right to them. And if they also didn't have to build upon other people's ideas. But those are theories that you don't necessarily need to worry about at this time. But just something to keep in mind as well, that at times it's not just enough to take somebody's work, transform it a bit, repackage it and sell it, right? So the third case is in 2022, quite recently, Italy's government claimed copyright over digital reproduction of Caravaggio's 400-year-old works. I mean, these were works that had been done 400 years ago. Even though they were long in the public domain, the government argued that high-quality museums can deserve new rights. Museums in Florence and Rome began charging, a lot of money for licensing fee, which is that if you want to digitize those works, those particular arts, you will need to pay in order to acquire new rights in them. So this takes us back to the case of our photographer, Mr. Ojekwere. As works that have been done long ago, to what extent can we touch them with digital tools and then acquire new rights in them and resell them? And that is what the estate of that man has been trying to resist. We want those rights to remain in the original form, and we want them to continue to generate the value that the man originally intended them for. So these are some of the interesting ways that photography and virtual art has evolved. Especially in the light of digital technologies and some of the issues that we are likely going to continue to face going forward. So the next slide, Dennis. So in the next slide, every time you repost a photo on Instagram or maybe Facebook or any other social media or a meme, technically you might be infringing copyrights. I mean, this is a no-brainer, but I think it's very important for us to note it because we tend to do it a lot. And enforcement is very rare, but there have been cases, especially in 2027, when Jetty Images demanded as much as $868 from a US blogger for reposting a photo of a potato. So we have to be mindful of those things. They don't always come for you, but when they do, it's not always very funny. And the thing with Jetty Images that I know from experience is how they simply don't tell you you have infringed on our rights, take down this photo, what they simply do is they send you an invoice. This is how much you are owing us for this photo that you have used. So in their mind, they've already concluded that you owe them money, you have used their product, and you should be paying for it. So it's not a question of whether or not you have infringed our rights, whether or not the picture belongs to you or belongs to us. And the guy had to pay as much as 800 for just a photo of a potato. So we need to be careful, as lawyers, you advise people what counts as fair use, what is transformative, and what is just, to be honest, just plain theft and being dressed up as fun. So as you go about your social media activities, always have those at the back of your mind, right? Then the next slide, Dennis. So yeah, this is also an interesting part I wanted us to look at, right? You see a lot of those around the streets of Lagos, pictures that have been painted on the wall, mural we call them. Of course, there are questions of whether or not they belong to the person that painted them, but because they are usually also painted on public properties. Whether or not, for instance, the Lagos State government can claim that they have the right to those pictures. But because they're also in the public domain, people snap at times, they're just in the background, whether or not those can be considered as public domain, are considered as falling within the public domain. This is just something I want you to pay particular attention to, and if possible, to look more carefully at some of the issues that can come out of it. The next slide. So the next slide, I want us to talk about what is, people are calling it creative economy. An economy where, it's built around creativity, right? And the role that lawyers come in. I mean, this is something I'm sure you are hearing a lot. What are some of the things you can do? But pay closer attention to some of the opportunities. And most importantly, I want you to pay attention to areas that people are talking less about, because those are also where the opportunities mostly are. So there's a lot of opportunities in music, movies, but there's also a lot of opportunities in photography. And it appears to be one of the areas that people tend to pay less attention to. But photography is what mostly drives what we interact with online these days. So it's very important that you pay attention to those things and see how you can begin to carve out for yourself a career path, from this. And the way to do that is you start by knowing a lot about it, knowing all the nuances around it, and developing in yourself that expertise that is necessary for you to now advise others about it. So please do that. And of course, the idea behind the mentorship is not just for us to talk to you for 15, 20 minutes. The idea is for us to be available during this period, for you to always reach out if you have questions, if you need assistance in any way, and we're always available to do that. So finally, the last slide, Dennis. So finally, the key takeaway for you, don't just ask, do I like this? Anytime you see something, I really can't say this enough. Just develop that curiosity in you that keeps building, that keeps leading you to answers, to questions that ordinary people will not ask, even ordinary entertainment lawyers will not ask. Keep asking those questions. Keep trying to answer them. Keep trying to research on them, so that you can develop in yourself that expertise that is necessary for you, not just to call yourself an entertainment lawyer or maybe a lawyer that is focused in this area, but for you to be well-grounded in it so that you can not just talk authoritatively, but be able to advise your clients. And maybe if you want to write about it, develop that thought leadership, that is necessary for someone to regard you highly in this area. So continue to do that. The essence of this, like I've said, is to encourage you to deepen your understanding of the law in this area. Not just the law, but the practice. What happens in practice, and not just what happens in the law or practice in Nigeria. What is happening globally? What are the trends? And what are the new areas that we should be paying close attention to? Thank you. I think that is the end of my presentation. My bio is there, and I've also included my email if you need to reach out now anytime. We're always available to engage. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Thank you so much, Mr. Michael, for your very wonderful presentation in class. We were happy to listen to everything you had to share in regards to, photography and visual arts and key things to pay attention to within the space. So thank you so much, Mr. Michael. We sincerely do appreciate. So we'll be taking our second mentor's presentation. That is Mr. Adedumadi's presentation on the topic for today. Please, if you're with us, we would just like to also hear from you in the next 20 to 30 minutes. Share your thoughts with us about the topic for today, photography and visual arts.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I have a slide. I'll share that with you later on. Maybe you can make it available to everyone who's on the call. Also, I would like to say it is actually great to have listened to the first speaker, Mr. Michael Dugari. Someone involved with it's an amazing book he wrote called Entertainment Law in Nigeria. Very fascinating book. And sir, just let me use this time to inform you that a lot of people have been asking me about that book. So
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. And I know that I get a lot of those inquiries too. I'm working on a revised version of it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be in touch with you soon about it. Thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate it.
Oh, that is wonderful to know. I also look forward to the revised version because I have the first one, and each time I find it a valuable resource. So also seeing you here and listening to you, thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you so much for all you do to see me out forward. Yes, in one sentence, also thank you to the organizers. This is not my first time speaking here, but I've always enjoyed speaking. Thank you so much for the invitation. And to the mentees, I have seen your presentations, and I look forward to discussing them with you upon your presentation. So let me jump right in. Photography and visual arts. So there's something Mr. Gary said, which I could relate to it very well off. You see, when I started to handle issues that pertain to entertainment law, as a lawyer, I had a keen eye for also identifying opportunity. I realized that there was a lot on music. There was a lot on movies. There are a lot of professionals in that space. But I asked myself, where are the lawyers and the professionals in the art industry, particularly the visual arts industry, and photography, which is also part of it here. And I started engaging with people in that area. I attend a lot of exhibitions. I have a lot of friends who are artists. And I realized that there was a dearth of lawyers in that area. In fact, they are really looking for lawyers. So I found myself in a position where I could be of value, in a new area where people there were actually looking for services. So what he said is very apt. It's important that you also keep an eye out for such areas. Now a lot of my colleagues call me when they have issues that pertain to art law. I've spoken at conferences on issues that pertain to art law. And it's been a wonderful experience. So keep an eye out as well. You might discover it. And when you build capacity in that niche, you could be well known. I think it's important I state that people didn't just people didn't just start to know me in 1 week or 2 weeks. It's years. I really focused on this area of law, I'll say about 3-4 years ago. So all that I've done up to now is what has earned me the recognition, the little one that I have now, is all that work. But the essence of it is, yes, it's not just one post, it's not just one week, it's not just one Twitter thread, and you feel you are an authority. What is also most important is to engage with people in that area. So I'm sure you have friends who are artists, who draw, who paint. You also have people who are into photography, who create content, right? You have a lot of friends that do that. Start engaging with them on the legal side of what they're doing. Yeah, so I'm just going to touch briefly on what copyright is. I'm sure a lot of us know that already. I've seen some of you have written something in that regard in your presentation, so I want to believe you've done some level of research on there. So yeah, copyright protects creators, right? There's something the last speaker said about the creative economy, right? Everybody in that economy, everybody in that space, their work is protected by copyright, right? So it protects visual arts, it protects photographs. There are so many things that copyright protects, such as maps, etchings, uh, sculptures, architectural works, craftsmanship. Those are just some of the things. And you can read more about that when you visit Section 108 of the Copyright Act. It has a list of things that are copyrightable. And of course, art and photography are right there next to it. The issue of the monkey that the last speaker spoke about was also very instructive. The name of that monkey is Naruto. I don't even know if that monkey is still alive today as we speak. But yes, I'm very familiar with that story, and it is the story of Naruto. Also, it's also important to take ownership of photography in that regard, because it also speaks to the instance of the monkey picture, and it also follows from what we were saying and what we are discussing now. Photography is protected by copyright. So when someone takes a picture, they own that picture, right? When someone creates a painting, they own that painting. And they have exclusive rights to do anything with it. They can sell it, they can recreate it, they can burn it, right? But so I am someone that likes to collect art. I have some paintings. But do you know that the only right I have to those paintings is to just hang them on my wall? I cannot take their picture and say, okay, say my firm is planning a calendar for 2026 that we want to give to our clients and friends, right? I'll now take pictures of all the artworks in my office and go and use it on the calendar and say because I own the artwork. I cannot do that. I do not have such rights, right? The rights, the intellectual property rights always remains with the creator, except it is expressly assigned. A classic example of the picture story is my sister called me one day. She had a birthday photo shoot and had gone to take a picture at some studio. Apparently, my cousin was passing that studio, I think, weeks after, and she called my sister and said, look, this studio, I've used your picture on their billboard. So my sister's picture was there on the billboard. And my sister called me, she wasn't so happy, and she said, of course, I'm the lawyer now. So I want to sue these people. They used my picture without my consent. But I had to explain to her that technically you don't own that picture. They are the ones that own that picture because they took it. So what I do, what I've done before, when I take such photographs at the studio, I expressly bargain for the assignment of the intellectual property in those pictures to me. I tell the photographer that these pictures, as part of the deal that we're having, as part of the service that you're providing, I don't want to see them anywhere else. I don't want to see them on your social media. I don't want to see them on your banner. I don't want to see them on your advert flyers, right? And I always have a small document, just a one pager, that I just take with me, and I said, please sign this. And they read it and they sign it because it assigns all those pictures to me. It assigns the intellectual property rights of all those pictures to me. Now, they don't mind doing it because you can imagine, as a photographer, they take pictures of a lot of people. So one person is telling them to assign them rights of their own picture. Oh God, the law, just take and go. Your own is too much. But because I understand the legal side to these things, that's why I can make such a decision and I can make such a claim, or I can also make such a request for them to assign the pictures to me. A lot of history on copyright is from the US, right? That is literally the birthplace of copyright law. When the camera was invented and photography was invented, there also had to be issues as to authorship and who owned those rights. So, there's a story of the prince. And just let me give a short brief of what that story was about. So there's an artist, or there was an artist called Prince, very popular back in the day. He came from the US. And there was a magazine, right? The magazine was Rolling Stone, I believe. I'm sure some of us might have heard of the magazine before. So Goldsmith engaged a photographer to take a picture of Prince for their magazine. Of course, they had all the documentation for that picture. They obtained all the necessary rights, and all the licenses for them to put that picture of Prince on their magazine, and they did that. And they paid the photographer, and yeah, they all continued with their lives. Now, years later, that artist Prince died. Immediately he died, the world was in shock. Oh, this is a person that was well known, and people were distraught by his passing. And that photographer who had taken his picture now created or released about 16 pictures, which were 16 variations of that one picture that he took, right, for the magazine then. 60, some he changed the color of the background, some he changed the color of the hair, some he changed the color of the face, things like that, but variations of that one picture. And Goldsmith sued him. Goldsmith's position was that, look, I engaged you to take pictures for my magazine. I paid the licensing fee. I obtained the rights for that picture so that I could publish it. You going to create extra copies of that picture without my consent and now beginning to sell them is an infringement of my right. And he sued. So the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. The photographer, which is the Warhol Foundation, actually photographers, I think it was the foundation that issued, tried to argue fair use, tried to argue transformative use. But the courts did not agree, right? The court said what he did was not transformative. And the Goldsmith won. In that case particularly was where the US Supreme Court also went to a long, like say, also went a great deal of explaining what exactly transformative use and fair use are. I'll just touch on that later on. So that's one case that I want you to take note of. Now, there are other cases. For instance, there's this basketballer, a lot of you might know him, LeBron James. He played a good game, and a photographer took a picture of him while he was putting a ball in the basket, right? And that picture was so nice that when he got out of the game and he saw the picture, he also posted it on his social media pages. The photographer sued him. He now also cross-petitioned, or he filed a cross action against the photographer, for his image rights. However, both of them were able to settle out of court. He also sued the photographer, while the photographer sued him for, I think, $150. No, he sued him for $150 for each time the picture was posted, right, by him. And he now filed a cross action for $1 million. He also claimed that the picture was a case of fair use. They settled out. Another story, which is now a bit different because this includes an artist and a photographer, is Blanche versus Books. There's also the story of Jeff Koons. If you know Jeff Koons as an artist, he does sculpture, right? And he took a picture of a father and a son sitting on a bench with 4 puppies, right? Took a picture. Someone had taken that picture and posted it somewhere online. He took that picture and created sculptures from the images on that picture, which was an exact replica of what was in the picture. The photographer sued him because he said that was a breach of his own photography rights as the owner and creator of that picture. Right? They also had to settle out of court. One thing you will learn is that a lot of cases like this are usually settled out of court because parties are able to come to some form of discussion, to some form of amicable resolution. I remember there's this company who was being sued. They also are a creative company. Of course, I'll not say their name here. They also are a creative company. That's how I'll describe them. But in one of their creations, they used somebody's picture. And they used that picture prominently in their creation. And that person sued them. So they called our firm, we had a discussion with them. And they were saying, oh, what are the exceptions? How can we get away from this? And I advised them, I said, look, you have clearly infringed the rights of this person. And you have made a lot of money from it. So there is no way you can claim fair use. There is no way you can claim transformative use. And I don't think you want us to go to court to test it before the judge. Because what those people were asking for, they were asking for, I think it was 20 million or 25, thereabout, yeah. And we're able to settle the matter for about 2 million. Right? Because I told them, look, let's not get to court with this. Let's not go to trial with this. Let us try and discuss and have an amicable settlement with them. And they did, so they just paid like 2 million to the photographer, and that case was settled. So I always tell a lot of artists, but before I say that point, there was something I said now. I said that company had made a lot of money. The truth is nobody's going to sue you when you don't make money. Or when you are not a superstar, when you are not a big deal. People sue usually because they feel they can get some form of damages from you. I'll give you an example. If you're walking on the street and a tout does something that you feel infringes on your rights, and you feel you can obtain monetary damages from that tout, or just let me put it this way. If you're driving a car and a keke napep hits your car and your bumper falls out, will you sue the keke napep? Because you're going to ask yourself, why would I want to sue the keke napep? It's going to cost a lot to get a lawyer. It's going to cost a lot to go and file a court. And even if I eventually get judgment, let's assume I ask the court for 10 million and they give me, and the court says, okay, yes, we award you 10 million. Will the keke napep driver be able to give me 10 million? Does the person have assets that can cover 10 million? How much is the keke napep itself? Those are questions you ask yourself. But when you're driving and a Dangote truck hits your car, you are looking to sue. Why? Because the person you are suing is not the keke napep. The person you are suing is the Dangote company. And of course, according to you, the Dangote company has a lot of money. Of course, Dangote is a billionaire. There is money. Let's sue him. So people sue you when you usually make a lot of. So there's some people that infringe on people's rights and they get away with it. And I always tell them why they have not come for you is because you've not made money. The minute you start making money from this thing that you have done, you'll be surprised the owner will come from where. Right? So that's important. Now, artists and photographers. Artists like to draw from what they see, so they might be online scrolling and they can find a picture that appeals to them and they can draw it. But I always tell them, look, you have to be careful. Obtain a license from the person that owns that photograph. You might be surprised that that person will not even ask you to pay. The person might even be flattered that an artist is thinking of recreating their photography. And the person will just give you that license and say, okay, just credit me. And the person might be good with that. So it's good to always try that option first. Not everybody is going to ask you for money. That's what I tell clients. Right? But some of them, maybe they don't know, they do it. How a lot of artists also get away with it is when they copy that picture and create it in whatever form that they're trying to create it in. They don't sell it. That's how some of them try to think they get away with it. They don't sell it. So if someone comes to them, they just say, oh, that it was just for practice. And I shared it online and I don't intend to sell it. So that is also one of the defenses that they use. But I'm always careful to tell them, look, ensure that you always get a license. Now, there are also people who take artworks and print them on their t-shirts, said that, which is totally wrong. Then there's also the moral rights in a creation. Like I said, I have a painting, but do you know that I cannot set that painting on fire? Yes, I'm the one that bought it. Yes, it is on my wall. And yes, it is right in front of me now. But do you know that if I take this painting that is here with me now and I take it outside and I pour petrol on it and I set it on fire, if the artist finds out, the artist can sue me because the only thing I have is the right to hang the painting on my wall. The physical painting, I don't have a right to destroy it. I don't have a right to copy it. I don't have a right to recreate it. I don't have a right to do anything else with it. I can even exhibit it and show it to my friends, but that's just the extent. My right. I would also like to just end because I think my time might be fast spent, but I also like to talk about AI, and as the final thing I'll speak on. AI is redefining a lot of things on the corporate. For instance, a lot of us, not even a lot of us, I'm sure every one of us now has access to one AI tool or the other. It's either on your Facebook, either ChatGPT, either on your WhatsApp. There are just so many out there. It's even on X too. There's Grok on X. So there's AI everywhere now. So there's no way you are not even interacting with AI or you don't have access to AI wherever you are. You know how you can put a prompt and you can prompt the AI to create something for you. It can create a book, it can create a picture, it can create a painting. But who owns copyright in that painting? One of the famous stories is about this painter who entered an art competition, right? I can't really recall the name now, but I'll try and find it. He entered an art competition with an AI generated image and he won. So when he won, people raised eyebrows and said, look, this guy doesn't really own this painting. And why should he be able to present an AI created painting as his? That case was one of the cases that led to a lot of brouhaha internationally between the AI creators, that is the creators of this AI intelligence. There are so many of them now, right? And people that own companies. So it is not even just artists and photographers, even authors are suing, musicians are suing and saying, look, you are using all our collective um, documented works to train your AI, and we should be paid for that. Because what you're doing now is spoiling our work. You have to understand that copyright law, the essence of copyright law, like I said in the beginning, is to protect creatives. So if an AI is now challenging how copyright law is doing that. So if copyright law is unable to continue to protect the creatives, protect the artists, protect the photographers, then there's going to be an issue because people are going to be like, what is the essence of copyright law anymore? Now that it has been so, permit me to use the word bastardized. Now they're developing theories on AI ownership, and it is coming from different parts of the world. So first, the position of the US court at the beginning of all this trouble, this AI trouble, was that copyright can only be owned by. That is the principle. Copyright, and they stuck to it. Then in China, the court in China came out with a reverse decision in a case that was before them. In that case, someone had used an AI chatbot, to create an image, and that image resembled one of the cartoon characters that some company owned. And that company sued and said, look, they created an image with AI, but it looks like the image of our character, right? And we're suing because we feel that our rights have been infringed. But you believe that that court held that that creation that was created by the AI prompt was actually copyrightable and that it belongs to the person. So we began to see a lot of difference, right, in worldview as the AI. There is also the view in the UK, which also tends to be more like the US approach. However, the recent US decision now says that, look, AI work or AI creation or something that is created by AI is now copyrightable. However, it must be shown that the human being who is filing as the owner of that copyrightable work was essentially the one that created all those prompts. You know that you prompt a chatbot and it gives you an answer, and it gives you a feedback or it gives you a result, right? You have to show the copyright authority, right, that you were the one that created that prompt through painstakingly altering your prompts, right, to create that specific image or to create that specific art or picture or song. You need to be sure that there was significant human effort to creating it. So how that plays out is some people say you have to have a recording of your process because I think that's about one of the easiest ways to show. Have a time lapse recording of how you started, of the prompts that you were keying into the AI chatbot, the feedback that you were getting, and how you were redefining it by each prompt that you gave it, right? So there has to be significant, and I want to believe that that significant means more than one prompt. So a lot of us know that when you just go to your phones now, you can tell the chatbot, create this for me. That's just one prompt and it pops up and that's an image. I don't think that is significant enough to warrant copyrightable. Now, this part that I just said is my opinion because when they are saying that you have to show significant effort, what was not defined is what exactly is significant effort, right? Is it just one prompt, 10 prompts, 50 prompts, 2,000 prompts? What exactly is significant effort? But I just believe that significant should mean more than one, right? So that's why I just said I want to believe it has to be a couple of prompts at the least. So yeah, AI is challenging artists today. AI is challenging photographers today. AI is challenging creators all over, right? And there is a big question of what is the future going to look like. So in Nigeria, we've not even started testing a lot of these things in courts. We've not even started doing that. And I think it would be interesting to see what the Nigerian courts will hold as regards to AI created content. Particularly because our copyright is still very strict on the fact that only a human being, can copyright a thing. So I wonder how that will play out in the Nigerian courts, but that's just something interesting. And that is what I would urge everyone to also pay attention to, try and read up about it, about the varying decisions in different parts of the world, and just try and see where there is a common ground among all of them. Why this is important is reading the theory of things, but applying it in practice is another. Yes, I can read what copyright law is, but I realized from my experience that no two cases are the same. I have had different artists call me. An artist called me and said, I want to copyright my work. And I was like, okay, great. What kind of work it is? What kind of work is it? And it was something I didn't think was copyrighted, right? And that was my opinion to the artist. I don't think you can copyright this technically, right? And I suggested that it might come under another heading, such as maybe designs, but copyright particularly, I don't think that particular creation will fall under that. Whereas there are other artists who have asked me, oh, I want to copyright my work. Sure, send it to me and I have a look at it and I said, okay, yeah, great, this is copyrightable. We can go ahead and copyright, right? So I want you to learn these principles and apply them in your daily engagement. It is never a one rule fits all situation. That's why you get this joke about when you ask a question of a lawyer, the lawyer always tells you it depends, and they never outrightly tell you a yes or no answer, because because truly it actually depends, right, on the circumstances of the case, of the parties involved, of the particular scenario, facts, that speak to that particular issue. So I think I'll end here. I don't want to take too much time, like I fear I may have, but I'll just say thank you so much for listening. I hope we found all I shared with valuable and engaging. Thank you so very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Adidumadi, for a very detailed and wonderful presentation. We want to say a big thank you to both our mentors that were able to share their thoughts in regards to today's class. We were it was really exciting listening to everything that was said in session. Thank you very much, sirs. All right, so please, we'll be moving on next to Menti's presentation. I was just informed that we'll just be having presentation from Group 1. So please, if the presenter for Group 1 is available, can we just have your presentation and then we'll take feedback from the mentors and we'll take questions and call it a day.
Good evening, everyone. Um, okay,
Good
good evening,
evening.
okay. I'll be I'll be presenting on copyright registration in Nigeria, the challenges of enforcement in the digital age, and how technology from watermarking to blockchain is reshaping protection for creators. So to start, I want to start with registration of copyright. So
Sorry, Adesope. Sorry,
yeah,
hope I got your name right. Please, you are supposed to share your screen. Are you not able to do that? If you are not, please just let me know so that I can maybe try from my end.
Um, yes, I can't share the screen because I'm reading from my own notes. Sorry.
All right. So let
Yeah,
me do that on your behalf. Just give me a minute.
okay, thank you.
All right. Oh, all right. Thank you, Mr. Michael. Um, please just a minute.
Okay.
Um, I'm working on it. Sorry for the delay. Um, it's giving me a little trouble, but I'm working on it. All right, please, if you can see my screen, you can go ahead.
Okay, I can see it. So I'll go ahead. So as I said, I want to start with registration of copyright. So to begin with, so you know that okay, unlike trademarks, copyright protection is automatic. Like once a creative work exists, but in Nigeria, the Copyright Commission offers a voluntary registration process. So this process does not create the right; it simply strengthens it because a certificate of registration serves as concrete evidence of ownership. So what does this mean? What does this mean? So okay, okay. Let's take for example. So imagine a like Nollywood filmmaker whose movie gets pirated. You know, like all these Telegram, that we watch illegal movies that we don't that we all do. We all do it like on Net Niger and co. So and then it gets sold on the street of Lagos, illegally. So if he or she has a copyright registration certificate, it becomes much easier to prove ownership and demand enforcement. So, okay. So the steps for this are very straightforward. So the first, I think we have about 5 steps, just briefly. So we have the first one, you confirm that the work is eligible under the Copyright Act. Second one, provide at least 2 copies of the work. Third one, obtain and complete the commission's registration form, either online or physically. Then the fourth one, submit the form with the copies and proof of payment. Processing usually takes about 6 weeks. And finally, if all requirements are met, the commission will issue you a certificate. So with every great responsibility comes with challenges. So we have challenges in enforcement of these copyrights registration certificate. So because registration is not only limited to one side of the story, enforcement is where the real struggle begins, especially in the digital era. So some of the biggest challenges include piracy and infringements, as I said earlier. So digital platforms make it easy to copy and share works globally in seconds. So, okay, an example is that think about how Nigerian movies often leak Nigerian movies often leak online before their official cinema release. Like one viral upload on Telegram or YouTube can lead to thousands and thousands of illegal downloads in hours. So, okay, then another example could be that okay, the second challenge is that um, global reach and global reach and decentralization. So the internet spreads illegal copies endlessly. So a Nigerian photographer might find their image on a US travel blog or a Chinese e-commerce site without ever being asked. So the internet makes infringements borderless and like makes it more easier. So another one is inadequate legislation. So laws often lag behind fast-moving technology. So what does this mean? So, like, okay, you know that, okay, for example, now we have TikTok dances, memes, and AI art, as our mentor spoke about earlier. So, our copyright laws were not originally designed to cover this because AI is something that is just evolving, TikTok, like all those stuffs. So, for example, now, who owns an AI generated artwork? The programmer, the user, or no one at all? So, that's like one of the challenges. Then we have complex liability. So complex liability means that who is responsible when works are not shared across okay, who is responsible when works are shared across multiple platforms? So okay, this one is trying to say that if a pirated Afrobeat track is shared on Audio Mac or Spotify by a random uploader that random that is you have no connection whatsoever to the work. So is the uploader responsible or the platform or both? That is complex liability, like that is who is responsible for that. So um who is responsible for that. So then I'll move to the positive impacts and opportunities, because technology is not just about the bad side. It also creates opportunities such as easier creation and distribution of works. We have wider reach and global visibility for creators. We have new technological solutions like blockchain for proof of ownership, better monitoring and enforcement tools. So that's that about that. Then we have protecting photography and visual works. So protecting photography and visual works. So now let's take photography and visual art as an example. So these works spread rapidly online. We all know that, but like they are also heavily pirated. So two key tools help us here to minimize like the piracy. So we have digital watermarking and image recognition technology. So what is this digital watermarking? What does it mean? So this one embeds ownership information into an image, either visible or invisible. But mostly we usually see the visible ones. Like for example now, if you are watching a video of like a videographer, and then the first thing you see is maybe the name of the photographer is like Ade Visuals, you would have seen it there. That there is the watermark in that work. And okay, then we have digital watermarking. The work of this is that it proves authorship, deters misuse, and supports legal claims, often used in combination with copyright registration. So another one is the second tool here is image recognition technology. So this one uses AI to scan the web for unauthorized copies. even cropped, resized, or altered ones. So this helps creators enforce their rights, issue takedown notices, and discover new licensing opportunities. Together, these tools create a strong framework. So it creates a strong framework. And then, okay, we have blockchain in art authentication. Moving further, blockchain technology is like developing art authentication. So it's blockchain is kind of this transparent technology that allows every record of an artwork's history to be preserved from creation to resale, etc. Platforms like various art and artery already issued sorry and artery already issue blockchain backed certificates. So the benefits of this blockchain briefly are we have immutability. What does this mean? This means that records can be tampered with. Smart contracts, that is, artists can automate resale royalties. We have auditability, that is, provenance is transparent and verifiable. But as I said before, that like it's definitely have a challenge. So the challenges, legal challenges to this blockchain is that, okay, like they come in form of questions that can blockchain records be admitted in court? How do we handle data protection conflicts, especially under the Nigerian the NDPR, that is Nigerian Data Protection, what's that R? Nigerian Data Protection, something. Sorry, I forgot. I think regulation in Nigeria. So, what about anti-money laundering concerns when art is used to hide illicit funds? And with NFTs, some tokens resemble investments, raising security regulation issues. So, raising security regulation issues. So, okay, let me give some examples to back this up. So an example is that, okay, let's say a Nigerian digital artist sells a piece as an NFT to a collector in Dubai. The blockchain record shows the artist name, the date, and every resale after that. Even if the files circulates online, the blockchain proves who the original creator was. Like this, okay, this one is not like an example to the challenge. Like artist is an example to the benefit of blockchain. So, okay, what an example for the challenge is that, there was this matter in 2021 where some buyers of NFTs thought that they were buying full copyright ownership of artworks. In reality, they only bought the token, not the actual intellectual property. So, this confusion can lead to lawsuits, like on the part of innocent buyers. So, of course, we will have legal frameworks in Nigeria. So the legal framework, briefly, we have the Evidence Act. So under Section 84 of the Evidence Act, which talks about computer generated evidence, says that that computer generated evidence is admissible in courts in form of okay. So yes, which says that um okay, sorry. Nigeria is making progress under the Evidence Act of 2011, Section 84, and the Cybercrimes Act of 2015 that electronic records, including blockchain, may be admissible if authenticity is proven. But linking a digital record to a physical artwork remains tricky, often requiring expert testimony or tagging methods. Then we have okay. ND Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. So and then let me quickly move to policy and reform proposals. That is like what are the steps we are taking to like improve these challenges that I just listed. So we have explicit recognition of blockchain evidence in Nigerian law, industry-wide standards for metadata and storage, privacy-friendly systems that store personal data off-chain, clear rules on intellectual property and consumer rights, liability allocation for mistakes in authentication, and training for judges and lawyers on blockchain. So that's about everything. Yes, that I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Adi Sokwe, for your presentation. Well done to you and to your team for putting it together. We appreciate the efforts of everyone who was able to contribute to the work of the presentation. So Mr. Michael had to excuse himself from class because he had to catch up with another meeting. But we still have Mr. Adidumadi with us. So, sir, we would just like you to carry us through with feedbacks to your thoughts about the presentation. We would ask questions, we'll give room for questions, and then we would wrap up for today. So please, sir, do you have any thoughts you would like to share in regards to the presentation, or maybe any other thing you would like to add in regards to the topic for today?
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Ade Shopper, well done on your presentation. Well done also to the team, the members of your team who put the presentation together. Um, the first I'd like to state on is your presenting style. I'm not criticizing, you did great, but I feel it's important that you improve on your presentation styles, most especially when you gather your thoughts. So you use a lot of air, you use a lot of, you use a lot of conjunctions. And I feel with the content that you're sharing, all you need to do is just be a little more relaxed in your presentation, right? Don't try to rush it, because it's when you do that you get a bit fidgety and you're not really sure what you're saying sometimes. Not that you're not sure, but you get to mix things up, or your delivery is not as perfect as it should. So just take your time when next you present. Just take a deep breath and present at your pace. In regards to the content itself, I think it's great what you and your team have also done. You've been able to research widely, obviously. You have also touched on a lot of issues which are cogent to creatives today. You've spoken about how to copyright, and from there all the way to how to protect your copyright, how to ensure that your copyright is not infringed upon, how to enforce your rights when it's been infringed upon, and also tools that can help creators achieve that. So I think that was a very good part of your presentation. Secondly, I do not see a lot of illustrations. Like I said while I was speaking, knowing the law is one thing, right? But interpreting it in actual circumstances is another thing. So in your next presentations, I would like to see you actually use examples, real life case studies. You give examples, so don't get me wrong, you give examples while you were speaking about, especially the issues of the tokens, people that bought tokens and they thought they were getting the rights to the whole artwork, but they were just getting the rights to the tokens and it was confusing. So that was an example, which is fine, but that was a generic example. I would have loved to hear some specific examples. How you get that is, of course, through accessing some databases that provide such case study or such case law for you to study. Yeah, so that is another thing that I noticed about the presentation. And generally, aside from that, I feel you did a good job. I feel your presenting too was fine, but there's always room for improvement in everything. And I'll even be the first to admit that, because even my presentation to you this evening is not perfect. There's always room for improvement for everybody, right? And being humble enough to learn is actually what you need to do if you want to improve on yourself. So yeah, let's just keep growing. Let's just keep creating the impact that we hope to create in the world that we find ourselves. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adidumadi. So I think in the last hour 30 minutes thereabouts, we almost 30 minutes. We have been talking about photography and visual art protection, and our two mentors were able to highlight very important things within the space of within this particular space, especially tying it to the copyright issues that emerges from creating artworks, to the different people who handle it and who owns particular rights, and how can those rights be defended, be transferred, and everything around that space, including the opportunities that are captured within the space. Right. So we want to give the room to mentees, right? We want to give you guys the room to ask questions based off of, you know, key critical things that has been said in class that, are not just tied to photography and visual art, but also other aspects of copyright, which may find themselves in some ways in movies and in music and, other forms of creative works. Right. If we have questions for our mentor, Mr. Adedumade, please, I would like for us to ask. I want us to take questions so that we can get to facilitate more on the discussion, and then, we can call it a wrap to class. So for any mentee that has a question, you can kindly do well to indicate by raise of hand or by sending your questions into the chat box. I'll do well to read them, and we'll pick up from there. So if we have questions, you can indicate by raise of hand or the other means by which I said. So let's do that quickly, if we can. Do we have questions in class? Okay. Mr. Babatunde Nicholas, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. So the question I wanted to ask was, I wanted to hear the opinion of the mentors on the practicability of a particular law in Nigeria, or what their opinion is on a particular law generally. I think some few months back, I read about the new steps taken by Denmark to copyright people's faces. That is, you can take, for example, copyright people's faces, because online you see a lot of videos of let's take, for example, Tinubu. Let's say Tinubu maybe holding a cigarette, or Tinubu maybe wearing chains or something like that, and Denmark are taking steps. So I don't know. I'm not really aware of the current stance of the law now, if they are properly established the law, but they took steps as to copyright the faces of people. That is, you cannot see anybody use anything similar to your face on any maybe advertisement or something like that. So I just wanted to hear your opinion. Although it might be quite similar to the scenario one of the mentees spoke about, as to his sister, that a picture was used in the photo graphic company or something like that. So I wanted to hear what's your opinion on it. Do you think it's a right step, or do you think it's sensible that people should copyright their faces? That is, you can't use Tinubu's picture anyhow. Maybe not as a position, but let me just hear your position on it. I hope you got the
All
question.
right. Yes, I did. Thank you so very much for that question. I actually also read about that piece of news when it came out. That was not too long ago, I believe, that I read that. And I also find it very interesting, really. It speaks to image rights, right? And the right of the people to their image. So if someone uses your likeness or your image, your picture online, you could claim against them. Let me give you one example that happened locally. During one of the presidential elections a couple of years ago, one of the candidates put a billboard somewhere, right? And the person whose picture was on that billboard sued, because the person said, why would they use my image without informing me? Now, do you know there's a possibility that it was the photographer who took that image that sold the image to the company that created the billboard? It might also be that the company just saw a picture somewhere and just took it off. But that person was an easy target. because of course he's a presidential aspirant. He has money, like I always say. So they rightfully sued the person as they thought was best. I think the matter was settled amicably. Now that just shows you that image rights is not something we are not experiencing here, right? There's also the issue of the lady and the photography company who use that image. So image rights, people are already experiencing their image being used without their consent. Now, I've always said that every case is specific to itself. But before I go to that, just let me speak to the passing of such a law. Now, how does something become law? Something happens, people in that community come together and think, okay, it's important that we put some rules in regards to this practice. Either we are saying it's wrong, either we are saying there's a certain procedure in which you do it, either we're saying it is right and you can do it. So those people came together, debated it in their Senate, or are debating it, and have come to say, look, the rights of people to their image need to be protected. I think the world is getting to a point where your image is not safe really anymore, right? You that you're speaking, you and I that we're speaking, either of us can go to our social media pages, take our pictures, just like you said, the story of the president, who people take his pictures, take his likeness, take his image, and they use it in some should I say designs that are not so flattering, right? So image rights is something that we are experiencing. That country has come together to say, look, image rights need to be protected, and they are passing a law to that effect. I believe we too, because the way the internet is now operating, anybody can just take your picture and feed it to an AI and tell it to create a video or tell it to create a picture of you doing something you were not doing. Right? So I believe we will also get to the point where image rights of people will be on the table on that level. Now you understand that there is already provision for protection of image rights as it is, right? However, of course, with new technology, that law is being tested now, and that's why this country has passed a more, should I say, encompassing law to protect their citizens. So I will not be surprised if I see other countries do similar things, even Nigeria, because, like I said, image rights need to be protected. Yeah, so that's just to answer that question. Then there was another leg I was going to talk about. I'm sorry, it escaped my mind. I just got lost in the conversation we were having. But yeah, if I could be reminded or if we can move to the next question, but I hope I've answered that question particularly significantly. Thank you.
Um, Thank you very much, Mr. Adidumadi, for helping us tackle that question. We have a question in the chat box from Adejumo Rhoda. She's asking, she wants to ask where a picture of another person is taken randomly without the person's permission. Can such a person sue the photographer? Because I learned from your presentation that the creator that is the photographer owns the pictures taken. Did you get the question, sir?
Yes, I did. So one of the ultimate tests, I said each case is very specific to its own fact. So one of the tests will be, where was that picture taken in the first place? What is depicted in that picture? Because the mistake I don't want you to make is to just give an overall answer to that question. So let's start from the first thing I asked. Where was the picture taken? Was the picture taken in a public place? Was the picture taken in a private place? Right? So if you come to my home and you come to my window and you take pictures of me, or you set up a camera in my house to take pictures of me, You are infringing on my privacy, right? And I can sue you for that. Why should you come and be taking pictures of me inside my house? I am spying, you know. I can say you've also entered my compound, without the rights to be there. So in that scenario, depending on the court, depending on my argument, I might win in court. But if I am at a football game, or if I am at the food court in ShopRite, or if I'm at the stadium, or if I'm at a protest, or if I'm at a rally, or if I'm at a public event, let's assume I attend a conference, like now the lawyers now, we attend the Nigerian Bar Association conference, right? If I am just in the room and someone takes a picture of themselves and I'm in the background, or if the person is just trying to show, oh, what's happening on the conference grounds, and the person just takes a video that captures me and captures a whole lot more people, and post it. I don't think we'll be able to convince the court significantly that our image rights were breached because we were in a public space, right? We're in a public space. We're on the conference ground. We're on a football game. We're in ShopRite. It's a public space. So if someone takes a picture in a public space, it will be very difficult for you to sue them. No, sorry, I take that back. It is very easy to sue. All you have to sue is to go to court and file and file your pleading. But it might be very difficult for you to convince the court that judgment should be given in your favor, right? Because you were in a public place. Now, the second thing that I asked, what was in the picture that was taken? From the examples that I have given, assuming they took a picture of me sitting in a conference room, right? Why would I want to sue? How do I think I can convince the court that my image rights were breached? Now there is a third leg to it, which I also don't want us to forget. You see, there is something called fair use, which is the right to use certain content, right? You should find out all the exceptions which come under the Fair Use Act. One of the things that might also be an issue, which I'll call the third thing, is money. For instance, now, if you take a picture of me in the conference room and you start to sell that picture and you start to make money, I might come and sue you because I'll be like, Oga, you are making some money with my image. Yes, you took the picture, but I also want to argue under image rights and say, look, I should also have a percentage of the money you're making from the picture of me in it, right? I'll tell you something very interesting. Do you know that Netflix, when they enter agreements with the movie producer, those agreements are so detailed? For instance, you know how you shoot a film, right? And let's say you shoot a scene on the street. Maybe one guy is on the road and he's on the road and a car jams him, or he meets someone at the start of a conversation, or irrespective of what that scene can be. But that scene is shot on the street. You know that when you're on the street, some buildings are obviously going to show in the image that you're shooting, except if you're shooting in the bush. If you're shooting in the bush, then it is trees that will show. But if you're shooting on the street where there are houses, where cars are passing by, where there are people, do you know that Netflix goes to the extent of saying that every house that shows in the movie, just on that street view, every house that shows, the producers have to provide an agreement from the owner of that house that he has given them the license for his house to show in the movie. That is how deep it can get. And when you get to that level, and the reason why they do that is, look, when you think of Netflix, what do you think of? Money. Everybody has it. I have a Netflix account. My sisters do, right? A, a lot of my friends do, right? It's on people's TVs, it's on people's phones, it's everywhere. I think that this is a rich company, and maybe I might want to sue them. Now, proving your case in court against the company is one thing. So, what that company can do is the company can know that they will beat you in court. Let's assume I live somewhere in Ikoyi, they shoot a film, my house shows, I saw Netflix because the movie is on Netflix, and I add all the producers that created the film as co-defendants, right? Netflix knows that they can win in court, but do you know how much it will cost them to get their lawyers involved? For their lawyers to go to court to defend the case, even if they are going to win. And what are they fighting for? They are fighting because one person saw his house in a movie on Netflix and is suing us. You get? And they're like, how many of those cases can we fight? Even if we know we are going to win in court, because when you are going to sue someone, you have to think of what they call the cost of litigation. That's why a lot of these cases have, if you noted from our examples, you see that they settle out of court because they say, look, if this guy now sued me, I'll call my lawyers, I'll pay them, let's say, some money, maybe 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, depending. Now, imagine if that film, right, that scene in that film showed about 20 houses. Imagine if everybody whose house showed in that film, 20 of them decides to sue me. Now, imagine how many films I have on Netflix. Imagine if everybody whose house shows on every film decides to sue me. Even if I'm going to win a court, that stress, I don't need it. So it's easier for me to just tell the producers, look, I'm going to fund your film. I don't mind. But you see, you have to lock down everything. Even the people that waka pass, they insist that you have an agreement with them. And it's part of the things that you show. You get people that just pass, maybe the bread seller or something. They insist on that level. So yeah, I hope I've answered that that too. Because I think I just got into speaking of things that were accidental to the question that was asked. But I hope I've been able to answer that question. If I have not, please just reiterate. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I am sure you did, and even more. Thank you so much for your thoughts that you have shared in regards to that question. Um, I don't know. Can we still take one more question from the mentee? Uh, okay, if we still have questions, we can go ahead and ask. Right, we'll take one more and then we'll call it a day. Is there any other person with a question? Anyone else with a question? All right, it seems we are out of questions for today. Thank you so much, Mr. Adidumade, for your time, your shared knowledge, and for being present to help answer our questions. Thank you to Mr. Michael in
My
Essential.
pleasure.
We'll do well to reach out to you, sir, to get your presentation like you promised so that we can share with the class. To the mentees that are present, thank you so much for making it to class. Technically, this is officially the last class under Entertainment, Business, and Law. Coming next week, there will be a new dynamics to class. Please do also watch out within your group for the notifications and the postings that will be made. Don't forget to share what you have learned. Our mentors have made it crystal clear that you can, beyond just these settings of class, you can also reach out to them Right, Mr. Michael's presentation will be shared to you. His contact information are there. If you need to reach out to him in regards to anything as the matter may concern entertainment business and law, please do well to do that if there is a need for that. All right, so with that, we've come to the end of today's session. For the mentees, don't forget to fill in your attendance and every other thing that is required for you to do. Thank you once again, Mr. Adedumade. Please do all have a wonderful night's rest. And for the
My
mentees,
pleasure.
see you all.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.